Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Jose Fernando Pineda. Pineda was shot and killed on Thursday, July 22, 2015, in the 300 block of West 13th Street in San Pedro, according to LA County coroner records. Alberto de Jesus Ramirez, John Gilbert Alvarado, and Ivan Hernandez were subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. On July 18, 2015, M.A. had a party in Wilmington for her daughter's baptism. At the party was her boyfriend Ronald, who was from San Pedro. The guests included S.G. and her boyfriend M.T., who had a visible RSP tattoo, referring to Rancho San Pedro street gang. S.G. had a child whose father was a member of Homicide. Shortly after midnight, M.A., Ronald, S.G., and M.T. drove to 25th and Leland Streets in San Pedro. M.A., asleep in the back seat, was awakened by gunshots. S.G. was shot in the leg and abdomen, and M.T. was shot in the left shoulder. A nearby resident heard approximately 5 or 6 gunshots. He saw a man shooting at a parked car. Another man was nearby. The two men ran down the sidewalk. Someone said Wilmas, and the two men entered a dark gray car and sped away with tires screeching. 2 days later, several San Pedro residents observed 2 men chase victim Jose Pineda on the 13th Street sidewalk. The victim had an RSP tattoo on the back of his head and a rancheria tattoo on his head or body. One of the men screamed, "Where you from?" A few seconds later, shots were fired. One man appeared to be wearing gloves and shot a gun with an extended magazine clip and a long barrel using his left hand. Defendant Alvarado is left-handed. The victim fell to the sidewalk. One of the men walked up on the victim and shot him 3 or 4 more times. The 2 men ran down 13th Street toward the alley. The victim died of multiple gunshot wounds. He had at least 9 gunshot wounds, including wounds through his neck, arm, stomach, liver, lung, and brain. Surveillance video from a nearby apartment showed 2 men walking south in the alley toward 13th Street and later running north in the alley. One wore gloves and held a long handgun in his left hand. At the scene of the shooting of S.G. and M.T., police recovered 28 shell casings and 2 expended bullet rounds, all fired from a 9mm firearm. At the scene of the victim's murder, police recovered 23 9mm till ammo shell casings fired from the same firearm as the shootings of S.G. and M.T., and 5 .380 caliber casings. Some of the 9mm casings were just inches from the victim's body. The number of 9mm casings suggested the gun had an extended magazine. A search of defendant Hernandez's home recovered clothing similar to that worn by the suspects as shown in the surveillance video of the victim's murder, including a long belt with a silver tip. Police searched a shed with a makeshift bed where defendant Ramirez stayed. They recovered an unloaded .22 caliber revolver and 3 live .380 caliber rounds. Eastside Wima's gang graffiti was on the wall. A search of defendant Alvarado's home recovered a sweatshirt with writing on it that matched the one in the surveillance video, gloves, a 9mm till ammo round, and a .380 caliber round. Defendant Hernandez confessed to police that he was one of the shooters in both incidents. The confession was presented to only his jury. Defendant Hernandez was 16 years old when he was arrested. He was interviewed at the police station over the course of 5 hours. One of his hands was handcuffed to a chair. He was given water, used the restroom, and had several breaks in which he slept. Regarding the murder of the victim, defendant Hernandez said he and a friend were cruising around San Pedro looking for Ronald. Defendant Hernandez was wearing pants with a long belt. They saw the victim who banged on them and was, quote, throwing up R's and shit. The victim didn't have a gun. Hernandez got out of the car and shot 5 rounds from a .22 caliber gun. Hernandez said he and his friend shot at the victim but did not shoot him and did not kill him. Police conducted a Perkins operation, in which defendant Alvarado was placed in a cell with 2 informants posing as gang member inmates and a recording device. Portions of the conversation were played for both juries. Alvarado said he was Chiquito from Eastside Wilmas. There was tension with fools from Rancho. A fool from Pedro was with a homegirl. That fool and fools from Rancho were entering Alvarado's hood. Alvarado said he and Rocket asked the victim a question. The victim responded, "Pedro." The victim's hands were in his pockets. Alvarado admitted shooting that fool from Pedro about 25 times with a 9mm gun, including about 7 times in the head and 7 times in the neck. Alvarado said he was the lead. He and Rocket used a Glock 17 and a .380, both with extended burners. Alvarado had 2 extendos. He made sure he was dead in my face when I walked away. Alvarado admitted he was the person running in the surveillance video. He said police also showed him pictures of Rocket. He said police showed him the sweatshirt he wore and he fucked up by not getting rid of it. Alvarado said the driver, Pinky, was from the hood. A gang expert testified defendants Alvarado, Ramirez, whose nickname was Pinky, and Hernandez, whose nickname was Rocket, were members of Eastside Wilmas. Alvarado, Ramirez, and Hernandez were charged with the murder of victim Jose Pineda. Ramirez and Hernandez were charged with the attempted murders of SG and MT and shooting in an occupied motor vehicle. The defendants were simultaneously tried by two juries, one for Alvarado and Ramirez and the other for Hernandez. As to count one, the jury found Alvarado, Ramirez, and Hernandez guilty of first-degree murder. The jury found Hernandez guilty of the attempted murders of SG and MT and shooting in an occupied motor vehicle. The jury found Ramirez not guilty of the attempted murders and shooting at an occupied motor vehicle. The court sentenced Alvarado and Ramirez to state prison for 50 years to life, and Hernandez for 114 years to life. Jose Fernando Pineda was 30 years old at the time of death.